And I think I'm recording now. All right, so today's webinar is around goal setting for the credential advisement process. The first thing we want to talk about is why we are setting goals. So we set goals with the candidates for a variety of reasons. The first one, obviously, it's part of the professional development process. We want these individuals to make goal setting part of how they develop. The goals are going to help the candidate to organize their time. It gives them a way to focus on what's important, gives them a little bit of direction. And lastly, it is a requirement for earning and maintaining the SAC credential. So as most of you know, we do have some requirements for goals. We do ask that each individual create one short-term goal for each of the 14 skill areas and one long-term goal for each of the 14 skill areas. In addition, we ask them to create a long-term goal for the portfolio and a long-term goal for the resource file. So when you're working with your students, you should end up with a total of 30 goals. Any questions about the requirements? All right. So the short-term goals are goals that we want to encourage the candidate to accomplish quickly. These are going to be simple goals, and these goals have to be accomplished within 6 months. For individuals that don't have summer programs or their summer program looks different, when you calculate the 6 months, you can skip those 2 summer months if you want to. And the short-term goals may or may not be connected to the long-term goals. So where a lot of people make mistakes is they think that the short-term goal has to be connected to the long-term goal. So in other words, the short-term goal is a piece that they need to do in order to get to the long-term goal. Some people will connect those goals, but you don't have to. Does anybody have any questions about the short-term goals?
No, but I do have a general question about the goals in general.
Yep.
Talking to some of the other advisors, and we were trying to determine when was the best time to have the candidates have their goals completed, because what I know what I'm finding is that by the time I get to the second visit, preparing for the third visit, the goals are still not complete, and it ends up holding up the process. When is the best time to, is that from first meeting saying, okay, I'm not going to come to your first visit until you at least have started on your goals, or is it after the first visit? What's your suggestion?
So I think we might be talking about a couple different things. So the goals right now that I'm talking about to create are the ones that you're going to start creating with them towards the end of the process. Okay. So ones that they're going to turn in when they turn their request for visit form in. I think the goals that you're talking about are more of the action oriented. So what are the items that they need to complete in order to meet the standards? Is that correct?
Well, I was talking about the goals that they have to submit.
Yep.
What I'm finding is that after the first visit, I'm okay, based on some of the gaps I'm seeing in your program and some of the things that you weren't able to write about, that can be the basis of your short and long-term goals. But what happening is it takes people either a really, really long time to pull them together, or they really need a lot of help to craft their goals. And sometimes that goes past the second visit. So what I'm trying to, figure out is, should I say, well, until we've sort of crafted out your goals, I won't come for the second visit, make that a part of their requirement, or that in the context of the second visit.
So let's talk about that. What do other people do? Anyone? Okay, everyone is setting goals with their people. I know they are because I've gotten packets. So when is everyone working on goals with their students?
Can you hear me? I usually do mine after the third visit. I'll have them come in, and then I actually sit down with them for about an hour or an hour and a half and actually write them all out.
So after the third visit, you make a special meeting with them to work on that.
Yes.
Great. Is anyone else doing that?
I did that last year. I met with a candidate who had most of her goals during the second meeting. We refined them the third meeting, but we still had a separate meeting just to review and refine them. But we also reviewed her entire packet. So she just happened to be the sort of person that was really working ahead and was basically doing hers as she goes. This year with the people, I've done one coaching visit out of 3. And I said, we'll worry about goals next time because he'll be further in the class. He'll have a better idea. But that's when I'm going to introduce it. And I'd like to at least get him to do 1 or 2 goals by the third visit, just so we can talk about it in the debrief. And then I'm planning to see it. I don't know that I wasn't thinking about doing a separate meeting necessarily, but that's generally what happens.
That's really helpful because I think maybe the way I was doing it, I was maybe expecting too much in the upfront. And I like the idea of having a separate coaching visit just for the goals. Because by the time you get toward the end, it does. So it's almost like you kind of really need to have a cushion toward the end so that you can really be able to support candidates. That makes sense.
I would agree with that. Candace doesn't have a mic, but she just sent me a chat that says that she typically does it after the second visit. That she started something new this year to help them think about goals throughout. She's created an action plan that they have to complete after every 2 or 3 skill areas of classwork. And I think a lot of people, create an action plan with them through the process to get them, and then kind of use that as the basis on how to move forward. Anyone else want to share how they do goals? Any tips or tricks that they can help?
Yeah, I'll ask about the water.
Anyone?
Well, she can take that cup with her.
Okay, well, we're going to move on then. So the long-term goals are generally more complex. They may require the candidate to seek more training, funding, resources, something that's going to take a little bit longer. And these are 6 months to 3 years to accomplish. So sometimes what I am seeing on the advisors, goals that the advisors are signing off on, are long-term goals in the 6-month range. So just make sure that you're counting out, the 6 months from about when you think the endorsement visit is going to be, and then do your 6 months to your 3 years. Does anyone have any questions about the timelines for those? All right.
We'll find it, Mom.
So if you look on pages 74 and 75 of your manual, this is what you're going to see, your short and long-term goals. You do see along the left-hand side, it does remind you that your short term's within 6 months, your long-term within 3 years. It goes over the SMART requirements, and then the when I'll do it, that's when your timeline is going to be put into place. So if you use this chart, or if you use, something that you've created similar to this, you want to make sure that you have space for those dates along that right-hand side. Any questions about the form? Fantastic. All right. So where do the goals come from? So you may end up, getting some goals from the course instructor if you are not the course instructor. Family input, so if you take a look at some of the surveys, right, from the family, from the students, That might give you some more information. Reflections from the candidate, or maybe if you created an action plan along the way and some things were not completed. Areas in the tool that the candidate is not scoring high in. And sometimes the credential endorser. So obviously you as an advisor are not going to know that, ahead of time. But if the endorser comes in and feels that the candidate is really lacking, they may change the goals for the student a little bit. Just to let you guys know, it's not too often that endorsers change the goals that they come in with, but it does happen on occasion. Does anyone else want to share where goals have come from when you've worked with your candidate? Anybody? I don't know why we decided to have a webinar on Monday.
I would also just add sometimes feedback from the staff. Not often, but sometimes in the context of working with the candidate, you get an opportunity to sometimes get feedback from the staff too. And that might be some things that maybe they haven't acknowledged. Not that they're not aware of it, but they may not have acknowledged. So I would just add that.
Oh, great.
The other places that I'm thinking that we haven't mentioned yet are areas of strength for the candidate, that sometimes they want to build on the stuff that they are really passionate about. Like I've seen some people get really excited about cultural activities and they realize there's so much to learn there and they love it. The other two things I've seen are required trainings. So whether that's OCFS required things they build in, or their organization may have a career path like Boys and Girls Club and YMCAs are like, we have all these courses at the national level for future supervisors or curriculum trainings. So they may say, now I'm ready to take advantage of those things. I'm going to sign up the next time that comes around. But it all feeds into either their licensure, being prepared to be a licensed site director, or it feeds into their career advancement within that organization.
Great. All good thoughts. All right. So the SMART goals, and this is right on top of the the worksheet that I just pulled back up, but we do require all of those goals to be SMART. So we're looking at specific, measurable, achievable, relevant. So for specific, we want to say exactly what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. For measurable, we're looking at precise language, avoiding comparative words, like some more occasionally. We want to see numbers. So I'm just putting a couple people on mute because I'm hearing a lot of background noise. Did that fix the problem for everybody? All right. So we want to see numbers. We want to see how many. We want to see measurable items. So for example, we can't just write, we're going to create some prop boxes. We want to know how many prop boxes they're going to create. So we'll create one prop box, and you'll see in the example below it says by November 2018. So that helps it helps get that timely in there as well. All right, achievable. So we want to make sure that the goals are realistic. We want to make sure that there's something that the individual is able to accomplish. So just because they want to do it doesn't always mean that it's something that they're going to be able to do. Sometimes we might have to help them break their goals down into little pieces. And sometimes we might have them use a short-term goal to help them achieve that long-term goal. So for example, if they wanted to get a couple more rooms approved by OCFS in October, if the goal was written in September, it probably would not be achievable because they need to wait on OCFS to do that. And as we know, chances of getting OCFS in a program in a couple of weeks is not realistic. So You see in my notes below, if the goal was written in September, it wouldn't be achievable. But if it was in April and we had until October to do it, that would be achievable. So sometimes it's about really making the students understand that they've kind of put their goals out of reach. Not that we don't want them reaching for the stars, but we also want them to be successful. Any questions about making them achievable? All right, moving on. Relevant. So we want students to choose goals that they care about, things that excite them, things that motivate them, and things that connect with the work that they're doing with their after-school programs. Sometimes they get a little out into left field, and it's our job to kind of rein them back in and make sure that they're making them relevant to the work that they're doing, or relevant to the work that they think they may be doing within the next 3 years. Right. Timely. We talked a little bit about this already, but a goal without a deadline, just a wish. So for every goal, we want to have the completion date, or if it's something to be done periodically, be specific about how many times or how often it'll be done within that time frame. Or if it's something that they're going to start. So for example, we have, for the 2019-2020 school year, we're going to put one new gym game per week in the gym game binder, and we're going to begin that in September 2019. So very specific, and we've written the timeline in there that we're going to begin it in September 2019. For the most part, when I see goals come in, the timeline is where we see issues. There's no timeline, or it's vague. So does anyone have any questions about the timelines and what should be in that box along the right-hand side? Okay. So examples, this is a good example. So I'll meet with the older children, the 4th and 5th graders, once per week to plan and execute a carnival for the younger children by June of 2019. So it's specific. We know exactly what they're doing. It's measurable. We know once per week, and we know that they're going to execute a carnival. It's achievable. It's relevant to the work that they're doing, and it's timely. It shows, the dates and times that they're going to do this. So that's a good example. All right, so let's talk about how we could improve some of these. So these are the ones on the left are really what we typically see. So I'll go to some trainings. It's our job to get them to be more specific and to run through and make that timeline. So if we change it to one training, we give them a little bit more specificity and then a timeline, June 2018. So it's specific, it's measurable, it's achievable, it's relevant, and timely. All right, hold on. So same thing, which ones are good? Some prop boxes. Meet with the children to brainstorm ideas on prop boxes. And then create 2 by November of 2019. So obviously that first one, not great. And the last thing I just really want to, talk to you guys about is these goals are the basis for renewing. So in order for these individuals to renew, they have to provide an update on 50% of these goals. So, and it doesn't matter, we get this question a lot, it doesn't matter if it's 50% of the short term, 50% of the long term, it's just 50%. So if they achieve all of their long-term goals, they're good to go. If they achieve all of their short-term goals, they're good to go. Most of the time we do see a nice mix of them, which is kind of what we're looking for, but they do have to achieve 50% of them. The other thing about renewal that I just kind of snuck in here is any of the skill areas that the students receive needs more training in, from the credential endorser or the advisor, they're going to have to show how they got training in those as well. And then the other piece of the renewal process is they're going to create another set of goals for the next 3 years. There are more specific instructions in Chapter 7 in the manual if you're interested, but they always have to do 14 short-term and 14 long-term goals to renew.
Erin, I have a question.
Yep.
Some of our candidates, after they received their credential, were promoted within their agency. So they went from maybe being the site director to maybe they're overseeing multiple sites, or they might even move up to a higher level of management within the agency. If they're not working in direct service with children in the way that they may have been at the time that they obtained their credential, are they still eligible to renew?
Yep. So we do have the renewal process for advanced professionals now. And quite honestly, Tanika, anytime, something like that happens, if they're really stuck and they can't show how they've done it, they need to call me and talk to me. We want them to set goals to figure out how they're going to move forward.
Mm-hmm.
We need to hold them responsible, for some of it so that we do have policies and procedures in place. But we also recognize that, circumstances happen and we want them to advance. So I'm hopeful that the advanced professionals will help them to be able to do that. But if they're still stuck, then they just need to call me and we'll talk about, what other steps we can take to help them to renew.
Got it. Yeah, because that question comes up a lot. I'm not always sure to answer, so I'm glad that we're doing this now.
Yeah, just tell them to call me.
Okay.
Because what we were seeing that was happening, which is why we created the one for advanced professionals, is they were getting moved up. And then, for some reason or another, their name needed to go on a license.
Right.
They're overseeing multiple sites and they didn't have a way to renew.
Right.
That's why we adjusted that process. And like I said, if you take a look at Chapter 7, it does show the difference between the direct line and the advanced. And again, and the advanced is a little more open-ended as well. It does still require goal setting, but it looks a little bit differently. Any other questions about goal setting? All right, so I want to take a few minutes, and this is by the request of the advisors and the host agencies. This is your time. This is probably the only time that you get to spend with other advisors. So I just want to open the floor up to see if anyone wanted to talk about any successes that they've had or any challenges they've had. And this does not need to directly relate to goal setting, just an advisement. I lost my chat box, so let's see.
Well, I'll have I have a success that there was a candidate that I was working with that it was going on almost a year, and he just got his credential. And I'm very proud of that because where he was at when I first started visiting his program and where he was at the time in which he had put in for his endorsement visit, he had made a huge amount of progress. And it was just a different sort of program that I was even used to because it was a smaller program. So he had less than 20 students in his program. But he really took it seriously in terms of making the changes that we had talked about. And so the success was that he made it through. I think the challenge was that in my mind, I was thinking that it had to be within 3 to 4 months that he had to go through the process and then have his visit. And it turned out to be, closer to like 8 to 9 months. But I think it was worth it because he was a better professional in the end.
Yeah, great. Anybody else? Oh. So Candace from the chat box that I just found again, she said regarding challenges, just getting people to complete the work. And I can certainly attest to that. Alicia and I have had more problems this year than we ever have. One of the things that we instituted a few years ago is homework help classes that EP won't pay for, but it does make your life a lot easier. But even this year, we can't even get people to attend those.
Well, I can say that we do clinicals, and it's difficult because I do them every other week. But, it's been great to pull people in. I mean, they don't pay extra in our case.
Yeah.
It's basically like an open time from 10 in the morning till 3 o'clock because I'm already in the office. And then I say, look, come in for an hour, come in for 2 hours. And most of the time it's that they can get help with their journals in particular, because that seems to be where people are having the most difficulty. But I will say that for those people who take advantage of it, because not everybody does, and there's some Wednesdays where literally nobody comes, and it's a great day for me because I can get my work done. But people who do come, not that I'm saying I don't want people to come, but for the people who do come, they really get a lot done because at their sites, they don't have like the breadth and space to just have that quiet time to think and do their writing. So they can come down to our space and they can actually work on their stuff and get some support. And like last week, we had class, and the first part of the class, they didn't, people didn't have to come, but they came early anyway, just so they could utilize that time to actually work on their stuff. So I was really proud of that. I feel like these sessions with you and, the more we make it tighter, I think it really helps the candidates, because at least it's becoming more clear for me anyway, how I can better support them after coming out of my experience. So I just want to thank you for putting these together because it's really helpful.
And I think, Tanika, whatever it is that you're doing down there seems to be working, because in the last several months, we've seen more students come out of New York City from you guys than we have, in the past. So keep doing what you're doing.
Thanks.
Anybody else have anything that they would like to share? If not, I'm going to give you a half an hour of your day back. All right, so I am going to try to figure out how to get this up on the website. And I also, at some point, I'm going to redo the first one and try to get that up on the website. I will send you guys an email once I figure out how to do it. In the meantime, if you guys have any questions, you know where to find me.
Erin, I just want to tell you that what you can do is once the recording is done, I usually just download it from Zoom and then upload it onto our YouTube. But I upload it as an unlisted so that the general public can't access it unless you have the link. And then that link is what I upload to our portal. So if that's helpful, that's kind of what we do.
That is helpful. And if I can't get it to work, I know who to call later.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, anytime.
All right, bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. Have a great day.
Stop recording.